Hey everyone, today I've got another fascinating game for you. This time it's between Magnus Carlsen and, I hope I'm saying this right, it says Sipke Ernst. So this is played in Wijk aan Zee 2004, so I guess Magnus would be about 13 or 14 years old in this game. So it's just a demonstration of his tactical ability, and it's typical Magnus. So here, Carlsen is white, Ernst is black. Carlsen kicks us off with 1e4 and Ernst plays the Caro-Kann with c6. Carlsen plays d4, d5 and now knight c3. So here black takes the pawn on e4, white captures the pawn back and bishop f5 is played, and this is a typical position that you'll see in the Caro-Kann. And white now here attacks the bishop on f5 and the bishop retreats to g6. And now white's main plan is to hassle this bishop. So Carlsen plays h4, hoping for a swift h5 to win the bishop from black. But black's wise to this, he plays h6, gives the bishop a recovery square on h7, and white plays knight to f3 here, hoping to play knight to e5 to attack the bishop and give black double pawns. And if the bishop retreats once the knight moves to e5, ideas of bishop c4 can be played, or queen f3 and queen b3, and we're really cooking with gas when we're attacking this f7 pawn, so black's got to be very careful. So for this reason knight d7 is played to cover this square, and Carlsen continues to h5 attacking this bishop and bishop h7. Notice the move order here. Now Carlsen plays bishop to d3, so notice he could have played bishop d3 before he played h5 here, but black's actually losing a tempo, so h5 moves the bishop and now bishop d3 from Carlsen, and black moves the bishop once again and queen takes d3. So if you look at this position, white's got 3 pieces out already, black's got 1 out, and white will be ready for the attack very soon. This is actually one of the main lines though. So e6 now from black, and Carlsen plonks his bishop on f4, stopping black from playing bishop d6. Queen a5 is a move that black can play here, check, and this has been played in several games, and the main line is bishop d2, followed by bishop b4. And if c3, black retreats the bishop to e7, c4 attacking the queen retreats and castles, and we get into this interesting position where d5 is a main move for white. So white's actually finished development and it's all to play for in this type of position. But in the game, f6, knight gf6 was played, and Carlsen here opts to castle queenside, so it's obvious what his plan is, to attack the king side with all his pieces. Black plays bishop to e7, decent move, it's your only place to put the bishop really, and Carlsen plays knight to e4. So what happens if black takes this knight now? Knight takes, queen takes, I guess knight to f6 to attack the queen again. The queen could retreat to e2, and I think queen d5 is actually decent for black because it attacks his a2 pawn. After king b1 and rook d8, I think black stands quite well here, so I think knight takes e4 was a viable option in this position. Instead though, Ernst plays queen a5 attacking the pawn straight away. Carlsen just plays king b1 calmly, protecting the pawn. But after this move, could black now play knight takes h5? Well, we get into an interesting variation with knight d6 check. The bishop's forced to take that, by the way, and after bishop captures, queen d5 looks like a good move for black. If bishop b4, black could play knight to f4 now, and once queen a3 has been played, knight b6 is given as the best move for black. After knight e5, f6, attacking the knight, white can actually play g3 here. So if f takes e5, d takes e5, attacking the queen with the rook, and black can actually play knight d3. So once c takes d3, the queen can come to f3 and bishop d6. You have to say white's actually doing a bit better here. The back bishop on d6 is a bit of a beast, and it's hard to see what black's plan is. Although let's not pretend white's position is perfect, it's not. But you can see why black didn't want to play knight takes h5 in this position. It's a bit too risky at the moment. Instead black castled, and here Carlsen decided to take on f6, so remove one defender, knight takes f6 check, knight takes f6, and now he plonks his knight on e5, which is a brilliant square for your knight. And rook a8 is played by Ernst, and queen e2 to get off this d file. c3 is an option, but I'm sure Carlsen was worried about c5 because this d file is now under threat from the rook. Queen g3 could be played, threatening bishop takes h6 because there's a nice pin now for white. So if king h8, maybe d takes c5, and after queen takes c5, rook takes d8, bishop takes d8's forced because the knight on e5 is attacking f7. So queen f3 to attack the b pawn, b6 and rook d1. Who's actually come out better here? It's actually given as dead equal. So maybe c3 wasn't a move that Carlsen wanted to play. Queen e2 seems like a better move. c5 is played by black, but now Carlsen comes up with an absolutely genius move. I'll give you 5 seconds to stop it, or you can pause the video and see what you think white's next move would be. So amazingly here, Carlsen played knight g6, attacking this rook. So black literally has two options now. He can either move his rook or take the knight. If the rook moves to e8, knight takes e7, rook takes e7, d takes c5, and the best move according to the computer is knight d5 now, attacking the bishop. But white can now play bishop d6, and after rook ed7 just play c4, and white's in the driving seat. So you can see why rook fe8 wasn't played in the game. So remember, after d takes c5, queen can't actually capture the c pawn because it's protecting the rook. But I do wonder what happens if, say, rook takes d1 check. Rook takes d1. Can black capture this pawn? Well, bishop d6 is a big threat. So no, he can't. So in this position you can see why rook fe8 was not a viable option. Instead, Ernst decided to take the knight on g6. But now this is just efficient Carlsen. He played queen takes e6 check, and if rook f7 here, just h takes g6 is killer. Rook d f8 and just g takes f7 check, rook takes and bishop e5. It's pretty much game over for black in this position. Is the exchange down and the pawn down. So in the game, king h8 was played. And now here, see if you can spot what Carlsen's next move is. There's a big difference between these two moves. If the queen just captures on e7, knight d5 can be played. After bishop d2 attacking the queen, knight takes e7, bishop takes a5 and b6. White's forced to play bishop to e1 to protect f2, and just c takes d4. You have to say black's actually doing a bit better here, so after king h8, white still has to be very careful and tactically acute to the position. Here though, Carlsen played h takes g6, and we see why, because both pieces, the bishop on f4 and the rook on h1, have put massive threat on this h6 pawn. So bishop takes h6 next move is a massive threat, and it's going to be checkmate if black ignores it. In the game, Ernst played knight g8 to protect this, but bishop h6 is played by Magnus anyway, and after g takes h6, Carlsen now just comes crashing in. Plays amazingly rook takes h6, which works. After the knight captures, Carlsen now plays queen takes e7, threatening queen h7 mate. And what can black actually do in this position? Well, in the game, Ernst just plays knight f7, and g takes f7 is played by Magnus. So here, black's actually a rook up, but the king is so open. Rook h1 is coming, the queen can come to f6 and just create a mating net. If queen b6 here, just queen to e5, king h7 and rook h1, we see how these pieces come into play. If king g6, queen g3, and a move like king f6 just succumbs to queen e5, king g6. And after king g6, a move like rook h5 can be played. So if black now plays a nothing move like a6, white can just clean up with a move like queen f5, king g7 and rook h7. So it's pretty much game over after that. In the game, after knight f7, g takes f7, black now played king to g7. And Carlsen put the final nail in the coffin with rook to d3, swinging over this rook to the g3 square. Ernst did all he could to protect his king. He played rook to d6. It's a bit of a trap here as well, so if queen takes the rook, queen e1 will actually checkmate, but Magnus is too wise to this, so he plays rook g3 check. the rook's forced to g6 and white can clean up now. Magnus plays queen e5, check, and after king takes f7, queen f5 is played by Magnus, and after rook f6, queen d7 is checkmate. All other moves actually lose in this position as well. For instance, if king e7, Carlsen can just play rook e3 check, and after rook e6, just queen takes e6. And if a move like just king d8, we can just take this rook. With king c7, just play queen f7, and we're going to take this rook off afterwards, and it's game over for black. So this all stemmed from this one move knight g6 right here. Just amazing how white now just managed to pull apart black's position and completely annihilate him. It's almost too beautiful. So let's have a quick look at this again. F takes g6, queen takes e6, and king h8, and after h takes g6, black can actually just resign now. So yeah, it's amazing how after all this manoeuvring, white just destroys black's position like this. Anyway, that's classic Magnus Carlsen play, and I hope you enjoyed this quick analysis of this game. Please like and subscribe if you did enjoy it, and I'll be with you with more chess videos in the future. Thank you very much for watching.